you have to own your own narrative. And, like, you can look at me on a piece of paper and, it doesn't sound so pretty. It doesn't look so nice. It doesn't, it paints this picture, of this really not so great person, and that was who I was then. But that's not who I am now. And I can own that. And I've grown from that. And I've learned from that. And I think if anything, it's made me an even better person because I have the ability to, relate to people or have empathy. I'm much more understanding. I'm not as critical or, judgmental because, I have no room to judge, you look at my past and it's not pretty, but I care. And yeah.
And you said something that I think is valuable, which is, you said a lot that's valuable, but you said you weren't a good person. And I would challenge that I would say that you're a good person making bad choices, which is different than being a bad person because everyone is a good person, but these choices are things that, you never want for your children.
Yeah.
But there's redemption.
Yeah. Which is why, so I'd started a company probably about, I don't know, a little over a year ago and kind of changed the trajectory of what I, anticipate this being. But essentially, when it comes to like therapy or coaching, my first goal is to become a certified trauma coach to be able to help people that have, lived through a similar trauma that I have. And granted, I've been kind of doing this, on my own for like the last year and a half since I got sober, when I started sharing my story and I would get more people reaching out to me of like, hey, Randi, I'm going through something similar. What has worked for you? Or do you have a minute to talk? And so I've kind of been doing it, but now I think, where I find my passion is just really being able to try to help people understand or see their worth and the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the trauma they're going through. So my inevitable end goal is to be able to kind of bridge this gap in between people that have suffered from trauma and them getting help. And what I mean by that is inherently, when you struggle with something, I can go to an addiction counselor, right? Or I can say, I want to go to a marriage counselor because that's their specialty. But you still find that you have to go to like maybe 3 or 4 different therapists or counselors before you find one that works for you. And my goal is to try to house a marketplace where people that have actually dealt with their own traumas, like it's almost kind of like positioning the therapist as the one that is being forthcoming with the traumas in their own personal life that they've been able to go through, so that the person that inevitably needs the help can say, I'm struggling with addiction. I was sexually abused as a child. And they can go to this marketplace and say, I can find a therapist or a counselor that has also lived a similar trauma. And so immediately there's this connection, right? Because you guys have both survived or lived through this similar trauma, right? And so there's like that kind of more so immediate connection because you are able to relate to them. So that's what I've been trying to do. And that's like, that's the roadmap. Still in the very early infant stages, but we'll see how that works out.
It sounds like such a great solution. Maybe that's the wrong word, but such a great opportunity to help people in a different way. And to your point, as a child, when you were with that therapist and the therapist, like, how could they possibly understand?
Right.
They couldn't. They were equipped with education. But it's just like, it's very different. And I'm not trying to minimize it all, but it frustrates me as an entrepreneur when I hear about entrepreneurial professors teaching entrepreneurship who have never started a business.
Right.
It's like,
how do you know?
How do you know? How do you know?
How do you know it works?
How do you know it works? There's the head knowledge, which is very valuable, and all the theories and all the research, very valuable, but also the lived experience adds something that is just makes it more authentic, to your earlier point.
Right. And I think that the biggest thing that I've heard, with people that I've spoke with is that, you know, it's easier to have conversations with somebody that, has lived through the same thing. So when I have conversations with people, I'm not judging them, right? Or I'm not looking at them like prescriptively, right? Like this textbook tells me that you need to do this, and this exercise or whatever, right? I can have these conversations with you, and like I've lived that. I know, I understand exactly how that feels because I was in that exact position, right? And to be able to give that kind of relatability or coaching or advice, I think is kind of where I think therapy and coaching should be and should go, especially because, in today's age, we are so much more accepting and open to addressing like mental health issues, abuse, all of those things. They're not as quote unquote taboo as they used to be, right? And being able to kind of lead with that, I think is going to be the future of kind of what therapy and coaching is.
Before we get to the break, if people are interested in reaching out to you to understand more about how they could connect with what you're doing on the coaching therapy side, should they go to the website? Should they LinkedIn? What's the best way for them to learn more?
Yeah, so they can go to my website. It's called werisefromtheashes.com. There should be a functionality in there where they can book time to chat with me. It's free as of right now. It's not something that I'm charging for. So it just really, the focus is just to kind of give people the avenue to be able to have somebody that they can talk to, and start there.